Have you been in a store yet where someone's asked you that inane question? Are you ready for Christmas yet? Got your shopping done, got your packages wrapped, got your party schedule laid out, your house decorated, all your, your tree up, your decorations up, all that kind of stuff that we do at this time of year. So I spent like 20 minutes decorating my house, which is better than last year. But as I was doing it, I was thinking, what is it we're really getting ready for here? What is it that I don't think we're preparing for a 15-minute orgy of flying ribbons and paper and getting stuff and then getting stuffed. I don't think that's what it's all about. I think there's something, when I think about this winter holiday that comes at such a poignant time of year, however it's celebrated, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, solstice, it's about something that happens inside of us, not about the outer at all. It's something that happens on the soul level. And this holiday has come to mean so much to us because it pulls at our hearts and our minds. It marks a mystical passage every year from the darkness into the light, a passage in consciousness from a more limited way of being to a greater and fuller and freer expression on the soul level, And every one of these holidays points us in that direction. Hanukkah is the celebration of a miracle that happened when times were very dark, yet the light persevered. And the solstice, of course, is a celebration that at the darkest time of year, when the days are the shortest, the light is returning. And Christmas is about the idea, the birth of an idea within us, a divine idea. And Kwanzaa is about remembering the strengths and values that make us part of the family of humankind. It marks a time when we are pregnant with light. Each one of us is pregnant with light, pregnant with the struggle to be the best we can be, to be all that we came here to be, the struggle to let the divine idea that's trying to be born through us into the world. And you can ask anyone here who's a mom. Pregnancy sucks. It's not easy. Sometimes it's blissful and rosy, and other times you're hanging over the great white porcelain god, speaking to the great white porcelain god, or trying not to slap somebody silly because your hormones and emotions are raging out of control, or crying as you're trying to hold on to yourself. Pregnancy is difficult, and what keeps an expectant mom going through that 9 months of is the idea that the end product is going to be amazing, right? Right? So we who are pregnant with a divine idea, as we are all the time, we can feel sick or strange or emotional or nauseated or despairing in the midst of this up and down, wild highs and bitter lows. And what gets us through this is the bold idea that what's coming through us, what's about to be born through us, is beyond amazing. And sometimes that's the only thing that gets us through. I've been involved with this philosophy that I call the science of spirit. Ernest Holmes called it the science of mind and spirit, but I find it too easy to get stuck on the mind part. So I call it the science of spirit. For nearly 30 years, and one of the things that I see happening over and over and over again is that people come here and learn the one thing our society does not teach them, and that is that they have the power over their own minds to change their way of thinking, and that changes their experience of life. It's the idea that you are in charge of your life experience. And some people learn that, and they start to feel better, and they become happier and healthier and more abundant and saner, and they say, okay, I got it. I'm out of here. That's the mind part. What I know is that knowledge is the tip of the iceberg, just the very tip, that there is no end to the depth and breadth of our relationship with the divine, however you define that. that there is no end to the relationship with ourselves as the place the divine shows up. There's no edge to our inner universe that is not expanding. The same way there's no edge of our outer universe that is not moving outward, creating time and space as it goes. What I know is this: when we come together and learn and expand and grow together, we find all sorts of new ways to think about and relate to this universe, this spirit, this life of oneness. And it never stops. What I'm trying to say is that there's always a larger idea. There's always a larger idea that is trying to express itself by means of us. We never, ever, ever stop growing and evolving. Not while we're in this body and not when we leave it. We never stop becoming more. And so one of the reasons we come together every Sunday and in classes and on service teams and in sanghas is to support each other through this pregnancy, through this growth and birthing of the greater idea of ourselves. We just keep exploring, and we use scriptures from all religions, and we use the practices that have sustained the mystics for all time, and we use all of these tools to develop the inner light that gives us faith that this new divine thing that's being born through us is beyond amazing, miraculous, a gift that is ours to give to this world. I said last week it's December, so Meister Eckhart always comes to mind. Here's my first Meister Eckhart quote for the day. He said, "The moment I flowed out from the Creator, all creatures stood up and shouted, 'Behold, here is God.' They were correct. You ask me, who is God? What is God? I reply, isness. Where there is isness, God is. Creation is the giving of isness from God. And that is why God becomes wherever any creature expresses God. What is God? God is." He reminds us in another place that it's a joy to God to have the divine nature and being poured completely into us who are divine images. Spirit has poured out the divine nature and being into each one of us, and our task is to allow it to be born into the form and likeness that we are becoming every moment, every day, into every word and every thought and every deed. And Meister Eckhart reminds us that this eternal birth is taking place in the darkness of our soul all the time, in that very, very depth of our being. And it takes place in the being and the ground and the core of the soul, he said. He said, not only is the Son of the Heavenly Creator born in this darkness, but you too are born there as a child of the same Heavenly Creator and none other. And the Creator extends this same power to you out of the divine maternity bed to eternally give birth. To eternally give birth. So the question becomes for us, what am I giving birth to? Do I like it? Do I like it? What indeed could it be? Besides the greater idea of you, the greater you that you are constantly becoming, the greater manifestation of who you are already. Because that's your gift to the world. Every single one of us has this gift that only we can give to the world. We come into existence with a unique and wonderful set of strengths and weaknesses. And those labels are not always correct. They are not always correct. Sometimes our weaknesses turn out to be our greatest strengths and vice versa. So part of the work that we're here to do, I think, is to look at those strengths and weaknesses and realize that if we don't know our strengths well, they will turn into our weaknesses. And if we don't know our weaknesses well, we have no hope of moving them into the other column. And, you know, we also need to learn to look at the weaknesses as the place the next powerful idea is going to be born through us. Because our weaknesses are where we grow, learn. When you get the strengths down, you know, the place to grow is the weaknesses, right? Last week in a board retreat, I did an exercise about the 4 archetypes that were used by Sam Keen and some others. King, magician, warrior, and lover. And each archetype has a group of strengths, which under stress become weaknesses, right? And I was trained up by my early experiences as a warrior. I have been a warrior since I was 3 years old, when I kind of had to grow up really fast. Warriors get stuff done. That's what they do. They get stuff done. They are powerhouses of energy, and they're fueled by an interpersonal, intrapersonal commitment and a high consciousness of integrity. There's a lot of real good stuff about the warrior archetype, but in its zeal to get stuff done, they sometimes walk right over the relationship part of life. Not good. And then they suffer from deep anxiety over what they've done and a low sense of self-worth. The very things that make a warrior strong become liabilities. I'm really happy that over time, I just found this out because I took a new assessment. Over time, and because I was willing to know my strengths and my weaknesses, I've now become as much lover as I am warrior. But the lover, too, has strengths that can become weaknesses. The desire for connection and the nurturing of connection can shift right over into codependence if we don't know it, if we don't watch out for it, right? What keeps me in my strengths and learning and growing from my weaknesses is the continual inner exploration, the continual asking, what am I giving birth to? Is it what I want? Do I like this kid? What am I giving birth to? Because there's something in every one of us that knows about this growth process called life and is always trying to become all that they came here to be, all that we came here to be. And there's something that pushes us in that direction. And the way we do it is to know ourselves more deeply, the light and the dark, the strengths and the weakness, so that we're able to take the risks to know who we are and to become what it is that's trying to become by means of us. And of course, around here, we teach that we do that, as did the mystics, through spiritual practice. We develop a spiritual practice. Meditation is the thing that lets us see what our minds are doing while they're up there jumping from tree to tree, carrying on. In meditation, we can begin to see that. And meditation teaches us the focus we need to hold on to the idea that's trying to be born and let the other stuff go, to call forth our strengths and let the weaknesses fall by the wayside. And we also teach silence so that we can hear the stirrings of that new life that's trying to be born by means of us, so that we learn to recognize and tap into the source of unconditional love that is always giving birth within us and that lets us get through the rough parts. You know, that part of us that always knows that when we judge another, it's not them, it's us. Because, you know, we really need that. A community of pregnant people can be rough sometimes, right? It can be rough sometimes. Sit through a class when everyone in the class is making major changes, and it can be a little scary from time to time. But that's why we come together, because in community we learn on Sunday or in class or on a committee or in a sangha. We learn to recognize the divine idea that's growing in the other and help it. We aren't midwives, we're doulas. Do you know the difference? A doula is the best friend of the pregnant woman, the one who cheers her on to give birth to whatever it is, to the child she's giving birth to. And so we are here to cheer each other on as we give birth to the divine idea of us, to clap for each other and to help each other breathe when it gets tough, and to remind each other that the end product is going to be beyond amazing. Because sometimes our own heads are the place that's really scary. Our own heads tell us we're not enough, that whatever it is that's trying to be born through us won't be enough, that the world is too much, that our grief is too much, that our sorrow is too much, that our lack of faith is not enough, that our morning sickness is too awful, that the uncomfortableness of being at the end and the final border of where we have grown to and ready to push through, because that's what it's like. You know, our skin gets too tight for us, our life gets too small for us, and then we have to break out. Sometimes that seems too much. That's what we have each other for. That's why we're each other's doulas. And one of my doulas is the spiritual hammer, Emma Curtis Hopkins. She's amazing. And I was reading this past week her second series of Bible interpretations, which are amazing. She says, the truth is that God is principle. The principle of goodness. Goodness is best. To do the best you can is to serve the best, and the best, as a principle, will reward you. The best will come of it because you did your best. Trust it, and the demonstration will be speedy. And the best she's talking about is the Christ consciousness that we are children of God, that every single one of us is an expression of God, that we are the place where God shows up in the world. She's talking about being motivated by that idea in everything that we do. This motive, this truth of our being can't help but bring about the best if that's our motive, right? Sometimes we'll screw up in the method. That's how we learn to do it differently. But if that is our motive, we will see its demonstration. I love Emma Curtis Hopkins. She goes on to say this: the truth of God is never absent as a life-saving certainty. The truth of God is never absent, however you define that, as a life-saving certainty. Whether it is the principle of life ever expanding, whether it is the principle of some intelligence in the universe that created everything, whatever it is. So the whole idea of getting through the pregnancy and being doulas to each other is to speak that word, that the truth of God is never absent as a life-saving certainty, much more than we speak those other words of fear and doubt and, oh, I'm going to be sick, and this is uncomfortable, and I don't like the way that person over there is birthing, or whatever it is. As doulas, we speak this word to each other: the truth of God is never absent as a life-saving certainty. Whew. Wow. That's a motive we can trust. That's a motive we can trust. And with that trust and with that motive, we let the fear and the doubt and the unworthiness go. And we trust that which is being born in us. And when it's being born in us as us, and we're letting it, and we're cheering each other on, and we're being cheered on, we are free. We are free. As Meister Eckhart tells us, love cannot distrust. Love cannot distrust. It only awaits the good trustfully. With such trust, God never fails to accomplish great things. And sometimes, sometimes the morning sickness is awful, and we just have to take the doula's word that we're doing fine, and that the truth is that God is there for us, whatever we define it as. And since I am the head of the doula squad around here, sometimes you just have to take my word for it. That which is seeking to be born through you is great. That which is seeking to be born through you is beautiful and powerful and something our world needs really badly. That which is being born through you is being born because you are enough. You are more than enough. You are beautiful and powerful and great enough to deliver it into the world. Beautiful and grand enough to enjoy all that it will bring to you and to share it. It is all that you are and all that you are becoming, and that's your motive. Your motive is to remember that God is never absent. The truth of God is never absent from you. Remember that motive and trust it. And remember that the divine already lives within you, and it is simply seeking a greater expression through you. And my final Emma Curtis Hopkins quote for the day. She reminds us that God can never be anything other than glorified. And so if you're trusting the expression of the divine as you, remember that it can never be anything other than glorified. In you, and as you, and through you. And so join me for a moment of contemplation, if you will. a moment of remembering that there is a spark of divine life within each one of us, and that it is always becoming. It is the isness of our lives. And that spark of divine life is the same divine life that spoke into being every part of the universe, that somehow figured out the perfect distance for our planet to be from its sun, so that life could happen, so that intelligence could happen, so that love could happen, so that creativity could happen, so that the magnificence of each one of us could happen, so that this image and likeness and self-conscious awareness that each one of us is could happen. And what joy the universe takes in that. What joy the universe takes in you as the place God is becoming, always. As the place that is expanding into an ever and ever and ever greater expression of the life of the divine. And so I know for each one of us that we remember the faces around us, the faces in this room, the faces in this community, in those times when we feel sick and despairing that this thing that is trying to be born by means of us is difficult. And that each one of us remembers to cheer the other on, to remind each other that it's all God, and the thing that seeks to be born through us is magnificent beyond measure. And that we'd learn to lean into that trust and that faith and that joy and that community that keeps us sane in those times of insanity. And I know that each one of us knows the light that is being born in us and as us and through us is the light that will light our path and the light that will light the path of someone nearby. Knowing that this is the truth of each one of us, that it is the truth of this spiritual community, of its place in the world. I say thank you. I give thanks for this deep knowing. I give thanks for the trust that that divine impulse and intelligence is never absent, for the trust that we have in each other. I give thanks for this amazing adventure we call life. I call it good. I call it very, very, very good. I bless it and I let it go, knowing that the universe has already said a resounding yes. So it's done. It's taken care of. So we say together, and so it is.